No, wait, no, hide.
We're
Shit.
professionals.
Here's I thought for one time we were gonna have our shit together.
No.
Nope, not today.
Run that back. Try it again. Full 5 minutes.
Wait, we can do this. We can do this.
Hello.
Hey there, ho there, hi there. Welcome back to For Geeks by Geeks, where geeks come to geek out. As always, I'm Boser.
And I beg that you stop that accent.
And this is your Monday Night Geek Out Sesh. We do it every Monday right here on Twitch. And if it's your very first time joining us, thank you. Let's hear you from the chat. We got Alec here, we've got our guest here in the chat, and we've got ourselves talking from the same account back and forth. Confusing the hell out of everyone.
Confuses me too, so that's okay.
Wait, did I say that? Did you say that? Who said that?
I genuinely get confused. I was like, did I type that or did Boser type that?
Did I just black out and my fingers started going crazy?
You never know.
But yeah, we do this each and every week, and whether you're watching back on YouTube or listening back on podcasts, thank you. Come join us sometime live here on Twitch. Join in the conversation. Good evening, John. I see we had classic technical difficulty.
Buy our merch.
I don't know what you're talking about. That was less of a technical difficulty, more of a user error.
How hard you fought technical difficulties being a part of our brand?
I did. But then...
And now look at you.
I mean, I wear the shirt at least once a week.
Exactly.
At least. But T, I gotta know. And I want to know from those in the chat, question of the day. Hey, if animals could talk, which would be the ruderest?
There is only one correct answer here, and the answer is obviously cats. They are malicious, compliant, jackass individuals. Plot twist, not even plot twist. Story time for my explanation. We have Remus, our little black cat. He's not so little anymore. He likes to think he runs the household. Well, Sky made biscuits the other day for dinner, and when she literally turned to grab her cup from the bottom of the couch, laying down, he threw his paw up on the couch, dragged the biscuit down, and tried running away with it. Cats are jackasses. That's all it is.
And when I was thinking of this question earlier, I obviously thought cats too, because I tried to compare it to every other animal I know in the canon of animalia. Zoophilia. I don't know. That's probably not
just
right.
going with Animal Kingdom, but I don't like the fact that you just said zoophilia.
That's probably not a good term,
the clip
right?
We don't want.
And I couldn't think of anything else that would.
John's
be
got a
as
good
shitty.
one. John's got a great one.
You know
Fun
what?
fact: I fought a goose once.
I've gotten bit in the face by a goose.
Did you deserve it?
No, I was trying to feed him grass in second grade, and he stretched his neck out. Did you know their neck stretch?
Yes.
And bypassed the whole grass and bit me.
Charlie is a fearless individual, so when she was young, she wanted to hug one. She charged one day, and the mama goose got pissed off and charged her. So I beat the shit out of that goose. No fun. I never kicked something harder in my life.
I want to know if you kicked it or did you just box it?
I punched it in the face first, and then I kicked it to get it away. It gave Stormy a try. I cold cocked that son of a bitch so hard.
Oh my god, what did it feel like?
Not a lot, because its head's not very big.
No.
So it literally went, who?
Like a weeble
and then it
wobble?
kept going, so I fucking kicked it, and that made it go away.
God. And Canadian geese, they'll just hunker down in the middle of a populated area, decide that's mine now. You can't live here, and fuck you for trying. I'm gonna shit everywhere and hiss.
Yeah.
I don't know why geese hiss. Anyway.
Because they're assholes. That's it.
You can use that question of the day command, or you can use command 225, and it'll take you to, or 225, sorry. I keep saying 225. It'll take you to the...
not wrong.
Yeah, but
it's not correct, but it's not wrong.
I specifically asked how you say it, and I keep saying it wrong anyway.
But very quickly, since we did not get to say hi to all these people yesterday in chat, I would like to thank Odd Job, Big Bad TV, Foxy LaFlirt, great name by the way.
Love that name.
Tisted, Wolven Knight, Joey, Firebird, actually, Wrath of the Kittens, great name. Davy Shark and Sunkissed Chic. Thanks for following, friends. Welcome to 4 Geeks by Geeks community.
Thank you. And thank you, Hasbro, for donating 30 subs yesterday.
And breaking the first part of that stream, because I couldn't figure out how to make that fucking sound stop.
How to turn the alerts up.
I didn't know how.
Like
I still
that
don't
one?
know how.
Hey, thanks for the... Oh, wait. It doesn't say anymore. There it is.
Thanks for the follow, X86.
Looks... I wish I could change that font.
Lipix.
Yeah, you can't read it. Thanks for the follow.
I have Streamlabs open, that's why.
Oh, smart. Like a professional, you have all the screens open like you should. I'm trying to read the screen.
Can we turn down music a smidge?
Yes.
Thank you.
I guess. So here's my thing on it. It's always so much quieter listening back for like YouTube or podcasts or on stream. It's much louder for us. And sometimes I've turned it down. You can just barely hear it. And it's almost like that annoying squeaking sound in the back because you don't know what it is. Anyway, I know you guys didn't hear us. You didn't come to hear us bullshit for an hour and a half. And we've got something very important waiting to come and meet you all. Very excited for tonight's discussion, specifically to all of those that are entrenched in the TTRPG world. This guy's got great resources for you, and I'd love for everybody in the chat to share your nightmare stories about your TTRPG campaigns, so maybe you can get some advice on how to fix that for the future. But please give it up for our new friend, the one and only Garrett from 225 Games. Welcome.
Salutations, everybody. Oh,
You get a whole round of applause.
That's live. That's live in this building.
We have a studio audience that you just don't see.
that's pretty lucky. I have.
It's very expensive.
It's all the people I keep in my basement.
Nice.
Well, welcome, Garrett. Welcome to 4 Geeks by Geeks. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, guys. I'm honored to be here. It's a pleasure to be here, and let's talk some TTRPG world building stuff.
That's my bread and butter. I'm really good at that.
I'm
Yeah,
very glad.
T is definitely the veteran DM, GM.
My problem is the writing portion. I'll world build all fucking day. Put something on paper? No.
No. Looks like you got some friends here, but Lepex86. Garrett in the building.
I am in the building. That is true.
But which building?
Who said
Search for his
225
IP
could be
address
this
here.
handsome?
So, no.
So look, everyone's crushing on you in the chat
I
already.
did dab. That is true.
But I will say that I'm always a little bit intimidated when somebody comes on and has a setup as beautiful as yours. I'm like, oh god, they're a
It's
professional.
astounding.
Why,
I know.
thank you.
We are gonna embarrass
Means I
ourselves.
should get out of my bedroom.
I don't have the good webcam yet. I've only got the Logitech like webcam. I don't have like a DSLR or
Look
anything.
at it.
So
It looks great. Look at you.
Ooh.
Damn,
at
now he's
you.
making me feel bad about my Logitech webcam.
You know.
I think
we
mine's
feel
only
bad together.
720 though. I think I have the 1080 somewhere, but it's wide lens, and I
At
don't
least
like
you make
that.
up for it in your looks because you're a handsome devil. That's what I have. To
I
say.
don't know. I had to put the hat on because this was getting.
I think we all need haircuts this week.
Me too. Thanks. That's why I have. Well, I wear this hat all the time when I'm not, at work. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say, in every picture that I've seen from your Instagram and from all the stuff, you're wearing that same salutations hat.
Yep. Salutations on the front, and then, boom, 225 on the back.
All right. So if I use command 225, can I pick one up for myself?
You could indeed. It's on our Streamlabs page, so you could.
Oh, you use
indeed
Streamlabs
go there
too?
from absolutely. Yeah.
Oh shit! And I also went to Amazon to buy a hero's journey,
A hero's journey.
a journal for 5e TTRPGs.
Exactly. That is very.
You mean
true.
you can get all these great resources that we're gonna talk about from 225games.com?
You can indeed get that at 225games.com. You hit the merch store.
See, they
or
have
you
a
hit
fucking
button.
.com.
They do. They paid for it too, I bet.
Damn, their merch is fire. Sorry, I should have done this previously, but your merch is dope.
Hey, thanks, man.
Well, we will learn all about your great merch. Hi, Sky. And
Hi, Sky.
and all the great resources a little later on. But If you're just joining us, stick around. We're live with 225 Games, and we're going to learn how to be better world builders, builders,
Gotta
better
love the
role
word
players.
bidders.
And towards the end of the stream, we'll actually take all that advice and put it to good use with the world's fastest one-shot on the internet. So stick around.
Excited for
Oh,
it.
that's my music. I was fucking bopping off. I was like, we're going to get DCMA'd and realize I hit play at some point in my own headset.
Hey, Heroes of Evermore, thanks for joining
Heroes
us.
of Evermore. Oh, friend. Hi, friendo.
You know them too?
You? Oh, absolutely.
Well,
Oh, yeah,
they're
I
going to
thought-
be a
Wait,
guest
aren't they
in a few
friends
weeks.
with
What a
TDB?
crossover episode we have right
Yeah.
now. That's crazy.
Do you know Team Drew's Basement too?
Not super well. I know of them. They have my sticker on their cabinet as they tag me in a post.
We are
about
officially
some of the
coming
coffee.
full circle with our guests.
That is.
Does that mean
lucky.
we're running out of guests? Or...
What this means, yeah, we're just going to be like guessing in a circle forever. No, what this is actually really cool. What this means is we are in, T. We are in.
We're in the inner circle.
Into the thick of it.
That
Well,
was-
before we get too far, I got to know the answer to tonight's question of the day, Garrett. If animals could talk, which one would be the ruderest?
Boser, you also haven't answered.
Definitely would
Yeah,
be
I did.
cats. I wholeheartedly agree. And I know Chris, my
cats.
cohort, would also agree that cats are going to be absolutely the rudest. And whenever we get into the world building and we start talking about cats and stuff, I will 100% get more in depth on that.
Oh, so the hate for cats is rooted in your campaigns.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna be
Absolutely
honest.
it
I
is.
don't think I have such a hate. I don't know if I've ever had an animal in. I lied. We have cats in our current campaign due to some character facts, but I don't think previously I've ever had an animal come up like, oh yeah, this is my pet.
Like a familiar?
Yeah, I don't think that counts though, because we're talking in the sense of like people just like, oh yeah, I had a pet. Like I don't even think I've ever written a backstory referencing a pet.
Huh.
It's usually just murdered parents so I can go off and be the fucking Batman I want to be in this fantasy world.
Is there some like trauma there about animals that you're somehow repressing and just won't let them into your TTRPGs?
Maybe. I don't know. Guess we'll find that out tonight.
Guess we'll find out. But for those that are just meeting you, Garrett, tell us a little bit about what 225 Games is and what you guys geek out about.
Good
Yeah,
catch,
so
probably.
225 Games, our whole motto, everything we do, it revolves around putting the RP back in TTRPG. And our TTRPG hot take is that there's so much focus mechanically on like combat and spells and this, that, and the other, that there's not really any mechanics or any kind of system that in itself, like in its core mechanics, explores roleplay to the extent that it could be explored and rewards roleplay other than, inspiration or something like that. So we develop resources that help world builders, that help players, and we're developing our own system, especially in the light of all the OGL stuff
Fuck you,
that really
wizards.
focuses on
We'll get to it.
roleplay as a core mechanic.
So really, you're making resources in the same way, like if somebody needed all the items for a shop, they could find that on the internet. But if they need to know how to better role play into a deep conversation,
Yeah,
Then-
so it's more kind of not to meta game, but it's more like
Yeah.
a meta perspective on roleplay. So, yeah, you can find all the items and like what to charge and all that, but it's like, how do you embrace the character? What makes a good character? What makes a not as high quality character or high quality world versus kind of a low quality world? And how do you take your stuff to the next level? And we're here to help you do that.
I hate the fact because it hadn't dawned on me the fact even that I just discussed it this last weekend that the role playing aspect of TTRPGs is a second thought because when you bring people in to like play these games for the first time, you can't teach them to role play first because then they're role playing and playing a game they don't understand what they're doing. As I had previously mentioned, we taught some people play D&D this weekend, and that was their thing. Like, I don't know how to role play. I'm like, that's fine. Don't even think about that. That's an afterthought. Like, play the mechanics of the game. That's all secondary. Yeah. And it didn't dawn on me in the fact that people go their whole lives just never actually role playing in game,
or they might think that they're role playing.
Right.
You're not role playing.
Yeah.
There's this fine line. But then, what is role play, right? You have to define those terms. Because role play for me could not be, role play for you.
Right.
Well,
Damn, I never pieced that together.
how would you define role play? Not saying it's
would-
the end all be all, but how do you define it?
Yeah, I am not the end all be all by any stretch of the imagination, I promise. So, but if you were to ask me my personal definition,
I did, in fact.
You did. This is true. It would be embracing the character as your own and making decisions based on a series of backstories and facts that this character has, and that you are keeping that in mind as you make in-game decisions.
Okay, so like really stepping into that character and living truthfully under the imaginary circumstances.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Differentiating yourself, the player, and the character you've created.
Right. So whenever you want to murder Hobo, because my character would do it, or a piece of information, and it's like this magic item. You learned in this meta explanation that there's this magic item. Oh, well, my character really all of a sudden likes really shiny stuff. So my character really wants this magic belt. No, they don't. You want that belt because now it does this.
Yep.
So
Your character doesn't.
yeah, your character has no affiliate. Now, if your character does, like Chris, for instance, the other half of 225, or the other third or fourth, his character, Trouble, loves shiny things. And that was established in the first get-go where he tried to rip a knob off the door, because the knob was made of gold. And he's like, I need this doorknob. And he just worked real hard on getting this doorknob, and then he, aggroed this whole fortress of Kuatoa. So that is already established, like, canonically. So if there was something shiny, like, he would want it, right? But just out of the blue explanation, oh, well, my character would... No, that's not really roleplay. It's not established. There's no verisimilitude in there. There's no kind of realism surrounding this.
So when did you first realize that there was a need for this kind of thing in the tabletop community?
I think kind of when I was in college, when I first got into D&D for the first time. I played it for a couple sessions and then didn't touch it again until years later. But just kind of being around there, and we all had no idea what we were doing, but I did know, knowing enough about stories and characters and like how things work, just, because I enjoy writing and I enjoy movies and whatnot, that this isn't how it should work. It should be kind of cooperative and kind of embracing this identity rather than kind of competitive between the DM and the characters and the characters and the DM, and like this head-on-head kind of nature, which didn't vibe with me. Because then there was no role play. I was like, but this is a role playing game. You always see, in pop culture, everybody's like in the costume with the pointy ears, and they're, art thou feeling it now, Mr. Krabs? Talking about English accent and whatnot. So, and we didn't have that. So I kind of disinterested with it, and then I picked it back up again, and that's what I really wanted to hit home was how do I or we bring the role-playing aspect out more, because everybody talks about mechanics and spells and min-maxing and the best builds. Nobody talks about like how to get in the head of a character. And that's where we come in.
And that's very like theatrical. It's like almost an acting perspective.
It is. And I am not an actor. No. So I just come from a lover of movies and a lover of media and games and, and from that, I guess I'm an amateur actor because we roleplay, right? Roleplaying is just acting. You are acting. So how do you act better? And, there's all sorts of treatises and guides and textbooks written on how to act that range from all sorts of different time periods. But how do you take that knowledge and condense it and to translate it into use for the RPG table? Because obviously you don't need all of it, right? You're not putting on Shakespeare, but you need to know some of the basics to kind of get a feel and kind of a vibe of what you want to portray at the table so that those players too can get those vibes.
Right.
I love the fact it's the unspoken thing when it comes to like the Matt Mercer effect. Is everybody comes to the table wanting Matt Mercer as the dungeon master, but to really get into that whole environment of getting that feeling that you're wanting, it's two sides of the same coin. The DM has to be as invested as you are, giving you these voices, giving you this backstory, giving you this role play to actually get the majority of the game we're actually sitting down to play to begin with. But yeah, everybody talks about, the Matt Mercer effect, but it's always blatantly ignored. The other half of that coin is like, you can't go into this not giving 110% to get the same outcome.
Yeah, 100%. And, if you're going to put all that weight on the DM anyway, you're going to have a burnt out DM in just a few sessions.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, they're not going to be able to make it because of, they have to feed their goldfish or whatever and got to tie their shoes so they can't make it. And then the whole game falls apart. And that happens all the time, right? So, but if you role play, both of you, the DM and the players, there's that symbiotic relationship and there's that ebb and flow of acting and storytelling. People are going to be inclined to keep going, and it's going to matter on both ends that both of these are like optimal at its core, at its top game.
And Sunkissed Chic is agreeing with you, saying absolutely. John Art Geek says, to be honest, a Shakespeare-inspired campaign would be pretty neat.
I've never hated something more, to be completely honest.
But you can only speak in iambic pentameter, and it has to rhyme. But yeah,
that would be an interesting character for sure.
Like as a bard.
Oh, absolutely, as a bard.
I've never banned something from a table, but that's not coming to my table. I can wholeheartedly say that with my chest in this moment right now.
And then Lepek says,
everywhere, it's not happening.
Garrett's been tired of my shit since last year.
I love you dearly, but maybe.
What up, Miss Dunk? I know that's not Miss Dunk. It's Mysteries Unknown, but you're just always Miss Dunk when I read it. But
Same.
Speaking of the Matt Mercer effect, it's interesting because like when you're talking about people come to D&D for the very first time and they're really focused on the rules and focused on like getting the right builds and everything. My very first like ever exposure to D&D was Critical Role. Like I stumbled upon it. I was like, someone's talking about this. I've never played D&D. I've never seen anybody play D&D. I don't even know how it's played at all. I'll give it a listen. And because it's Critical Role, so much of what they do is focused on the role play. That, like, from the first moment, I realized, oh, that's what D&D is, or at least that's what I thought D&D is. And so it's almost like a catch-22. On one hand, you see the glory that it could be, but then also come to a table and expect that. That's just not going to happen.
It does not happen without the work. Just like anything in life, not to get poetic and deep, but like if you're not going to put in the work, you reap what you sow, right? If you want to have a bountiful harvest, you got to till the land and plant the seed. Otherwise, it's not going to be anything. And that goes for both the player and the DM, especially if the DM is doing homebrew world building too. How do you create a world that is super cohesive and that makes sense and that everything has a reason?
I'm going to switch us. I'm going to put you up here because every time I throw a great comment, like, I'm surprised that we haven't coined the Brennan effect because that was the bug that bit me and got me started, says Miss Dunk. I don't want it covering your face.
I will always advocate that Brennan Lee Mulligan is the superior DM, but we won't go down that avenue.
And I don't even like I love Brennan Lee Mulligan. I'm not like Matt Mercer's better or so-and-so. Because I really think it's kind of probably shitty to say any DM is better than any other DM.
It's two polar opposite DMs.
And, like, we're playing make-believe in a basement with friends. Like, there's no... I don't know. The term better, I just don't like that term better in most instances.
Garrett, I am curious. Do you listen to a lot of TTRPG podcasts or actual plays?
Not a lot of them. 20 Sides Podcast, give them a little shout out, is my favorite podcast out there. It's D&D 5e, and it's 30-minute episodes, and it's like action.
Oh, okay.
And the role play is great. 20 Sides, fantastic.
I think I follow them, actually.
They're pretty active on Instagram, so I'm sure that you do. However, for like Critical Role, hot take. I don't have the attention span, straight up.
Same.
That's what T says too.
Cannot listen to a 4-hour episode. And oh, by the way, there's 100 of them. I don't have 400
it's
hours.
It's the fucking One Piece of fucking actual plays.
It actually is becoming that. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't sit and listen. I never tune into the Twitch because I just can't. That's late, first of all, for our time.
Yeah.
And it's too long. But I put it on the car when I'm driving to work. I'll listen like 30 minutes, a little bit, 30 minutes. And so I just chip away at it. And I get little moments of joy. But if I try to sit the whole thing, it's a lot.
My wife and I tried the Mighty Nine campaign. I guess that's season 2 or 3, whatever it was. Anyway, we made it about 30 minutes into the first episode, and that was a year ago. So
So I am curious, trying to bring people into the hobby. Podcasting is my excuse for people to try to give it a whirl. I know you said you don't listen to many, but of what you have listened to, who would you say would be like, if you're like, hey, listen to this, see if you might like this idea. Like, what podcast, what actual play do you send people to give an introduction to what this game can be?
I would send them to 20 Sides every day of the week. It's so engaging, and what they do over here is awesome. And this is not paid for. They didn't ask me to help them out or anything. I promise.
It's your podcast, isn't it? It's your side podcast.
It is not. I am not involved in it at all. But it's so well done in such a short amount of time, and that they can keep a plot progressing and waste no time. And it's perfect, and it's unedited, but it's just 30-minute chunks. So on a drive to work and back, there's an episode right there, which I love, because I don't have
so
short in the world with everything I do. Yeah, and there's not a wasted second in that whole podcast. I love every second of it. It's fantastic, and the characters lovable and great.
My answer for the longest time was the Adventure Zone. I think the McElroy brothers just have a good entrance into the hobby, but I think at this point, due to what is likely going to happen at a table, is Dungeons and Daddies, because just the nonsense, the sexual innuendos, the getting off track, that's the most realistic, in my opinion, the most realistic thing you're going to get playing Dungeons and Dragons with friends. And so I'm like, listen, you're not going to learn to play D&D through this podcast. You will get the vibe of what to expect when you sit down with your friends and try to play this game.
Yeah.
And you will have a good time.
Yes. Key thing here. Have fun.
Have fun.
It is a game. And that's, I think, something that people forget too, is that you are playing make-believe with rules. And that is what D&D is it's make-believe with some rules. So if you take that seriously, I will laugh at you.
And that's exactly what John said in the chat. He said it's make-believe, but with rules to curb the, nuh-uh, you can't hit me because I have a monkey-proof shield. So imagine that, use your wildest imagination to believe that maybe T and I, we have a weekly campaign that we stream every Thursday with some friends, and we might suck at the role play. Or maybe there's some things that we could be doing better. What advice would you give us, or what kind of advice can we find by going to 225 Games?
So if you sign up for our newsletter, there's a guide. There's two guides that you can get. One is the beginning of Story Elus, which is our homebrew world, and this is kind of like our backstory and whatnot. It's obsolete now. It's advanced a lot since then, since the posting on this podcast. But the other one, or on the newsletter, but the other one is how to optimize your storytelling. So that's a resource that you could use to kind of optimize your storytelling. There's 5 or 7 guides that you'll get tips in the guide that will guide you to optimize your storytelling, kind of to play on that optimization min-maxing. But instead of, your abilities, it's storytelling. So there's that. But also, if you're asking me personally, I would say empathy. Empathy through your character, and to empathize with your character. And to always go deeper and ask why. So if you're having trouble unlocking who they are, well, think about yourself and then put yourself kind of in their shoes. Who are they? And then whenever you come to a definition of that, and you define that term, then why are they that way? Okay, here's why they are. But why are they that way? And then you just go as deep as you can until you kind of get into the baggage of things. Because the thing is, you can't create a perfect character, nor should you in any form of media. Mm-hmm. Perfection is not interesting at all.
Fun.
It's no fun. It's not interesting. It's lame. So why do you have these kind of tendencies? So in this ongoing campaign that Asher, who also works with 225 with the development of this new system, he's running this kind of horror campaign, and I play Dr. Fox Ivanoveth, who is this kind of German fox, evil quote-unquote scientist, engineer, and he likes to make things explode. But he hates magic, but he loves ingenuity. And the reason is as a small child, his parents were into his brother, that he was this mage, and it was so cool. But they ignored Dr. Fox Ivanoveth because he wasn't a mage. He could only invent things, and that wasn't as cool as making fire come out of your hand. So he has resentment kind of built in there and this sibling rivalry. But that isn't revealed yet in the plot, so people just kind of know that from a meta perspective. But kind of just keep going in there. Now, having like a mad scientist fox, a fennec fox, is super cool. Like, that's awesome. But to make it go deeper, why does he only want gadgets? Why does he feel this resentment towards magic users? Why does he feel this resentment towards his parents? Which parents are always a go-to anyway, especially with rogues, right? The dead parents, and now I'm edgy. But why? Why does that matter? And then just keep going deep and make it unique too. Make it something truly that matters to you. Like, what speaks to you, put that in your character, and you're going to have a lot more fun with it if you do that way.
You're saying so many things that are equivalent to similar conversations I would have with like my acting students. Because it's all make-believe, right? Acting and D&D, it's just the stage is different. It's either in front of a large crowd on a stage or it's around a table with some friends. But what I have them fill out is like a character backstory sheet. And they fill out all these questions, and I encourage them to add some emotional ammo, is what I call it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, something that will motivate you to action, and it can be like right on the nose, whatever it needs to be, but the only person that's going to know that backstory is you, but the audience will be able to connect with you because you are connecting with it more at a deep level.
Yeah. What's the stereotypical actor's line? Like, what is my motivation?
Exactly. So it's stereotypical, but it's true.
It is exactly true. You can't act, or you can't role play, or you can't portray anything without having some sort of emotional connection to it. It's some kind of emotional or psychological or any kind of connection to this character. Otherwise, it's going to fall flat, deadpan, and just be kind of one-dimensional and lame. And that's what you will fall disinterested with, which is why you're going to look forward to combat all the time instead of the role play conversations and those experiences, which is in the RP and TTRPG.
So for someone like me that I love the RP, like I could just do that all day and screw combat.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody like me that find a way to incorporate the roleplay into the combat? Because I almost feel like, well, everyone's gonna turn it off. Jeff Stitz is really good at it though. He
does a great job with that.
He's another head on the channel during the TTRPG nights, but he's really good at it. But I need someone to break it down for me.
So the table that I play at, whenever I started 225, I was like, I got to start like actually DMing and stuff. So I got all the people together, which is where Asher and Chris kind of came in, and then they just kind of jumped on board with what we're doing here. But they always give me a hard time at combat because I'm more interested in looking cool than I am performing cool. So before the show started, I was telling you guys about Rudius Tudius Shootius III, who was this Aarakocra gunslinger, and he was just dumb cowboy, shot everything. So he was stupid. So he'd always have dumb puns and one-liners, but like the dumb puns and one-liners made no sense at all. And this was for a one-shot, so he didn't need like too much innovation, but like enough to be unique and characteristic of Rudius. So I had a whole list of puns here, and I would just go through the puns and then be like, I shoot him in the head, and then I'd roll to shoot him in the head, and then that didn't work. So like, I roll again, and I try to shoot him in the head again, and that was his whole thing, was I shoot him in the head, and that's all he did. So to kind of answer your question through an example, which I would yell at my students for doing, because I always like to give them, they need to give me definitions, not examples. Trying to get them to differentiate the two is hard, but you just have to, one, have fun with it, and two, how would your character do this? So it's not enough to have their psychological kind of profile and like that emotional baggage and whatever that they have, their imperfections, but also how do they move? How do they act? Is your barbarian kind of like just, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like a brute force, and he's just going to rush in there? Or is he kind of more on the sneaky side? You can still play a barbarian and he can be raged, but maybe he's a little bit more dexterous, or maybe he's a little bit more, like a Ballarat, like a Bruce Lee kind of character, not a monk, but like have those characteristics as a barbarian, which would be a very unique way to play a barbarian. They don't all have to be the same, and they don't all have to be one-dimensional, especially in combat. I think you can add a lot of flavor with adjectives and add a lot of flavor with description. As the veteran TTRPGer,
like what's connecting? Because all I hear from this side is like I only have so much experience, right? Only really with you.
The thing that is on my brain right now is how much shit you and Jeffsits give me when I ask for character facts every week. But I will take the blame because in my head, everything that Garrett is saying right now is, yeah, that's why I'm asking for these things. But I clearly have not like illustrated that out. Like, this is why I think you need to provide those character facts. And kind of just going back to what was previously said, it was why is such a big question I don't think people give enough attention to. Because like, oh no, I'll just figure that out as you go. And which is fine sometimes, because a lot of the times when you do that, it's fun to watch your character unravel and naturally evolve. But if you're naturally evolving, then the character you created versus the character that it becomes can oftentimes be polar opposites, not even be what the game came in as. So if you're not asking those questions, why, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot with coming into it kind of half-assed, which can not really ruin the experience for anybody, but it can hamper your experience. Because if you're coming in trying to set expectations like, oh, this is the character I want to be, but if you don't know why you want that character to be that way, what are their goals, what are their aspirations, you're not going to get that achievement unlocked. And you're not going to be satisfied with the conclusion. You're going to sit there like, well, I can't figure out why I'm not feeling the gratification from this. When really it just goes back to you didn't know why you were doing it to begin with.
How can you develop a character without a plan?
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't, right?
This whole conversation has just been
anyway.
me realizing I don't communicate well enough with my players, and I need to do better about it.
And that's kind of the DM's or GM, whatever their role is. Yeah, right. Their goal, or I guess their role, not goal, but their role is kind of in a coaching role too, especially for new players, right? You're supposedly the expert, quote unquote, and take that for whatever you will. But you're guiding new players through this journey, and that's a hero's journey, if you will. And as you guide them through this journey, you're supposed to, become something new at the end. If so, going to the journal, a hero's journey, a journal for 5e TTRPGs. Ooh, it's full of character sheets. It's full of campaign notes. It's full of all things that you'd ever need in life to ever play 5e. And then the name comes from Joseph Campbell, who is famous for the hero's journey, where, Harry Potter, Star Wars, Dune, like all of the iconic movies, they follow the same path. And your goal is to kind of follow the same path. That's kind of the RP element of D&D, where you are the unsure hero who is kind of weak. And then by the end of whatever, you have changed. You went into the unknown world. And now that you're back in the known world, you are now different for it. Frodo Baggins is not the same Frodo as when he left the Shire as when he comes back. And that is indicative in the final scenes of Return of the King, when they're sitting in the tavern and they're no longer dancing on the tables and they're all holding their pints going, holy shit, what did we even do? Like, that's crazy what we just did. And they're kind of depressed about it even. That's, Luke Skywalker isn't the same when he goes back to Tatooine. He's in Return of the Jedi. He's not the farm kid anymore. Now he's this Jedi master, and he's force choking Jabba and doing all crazy shit. So your character should do the same thing, right? You cannot stay the same one-dimensional. You have to have a plan. What do you kind of want your character to look like in the end, and how are you going to help them get there? And that takes a little bit of planning and a little bit of outside thinking, but so too does DMing this whole thing and thinking about the world. And how do you want all the party to kind of do this? And there's very macro and micro kind of frames of reference to do this in, whether you're the DM or the player.
So T, can I allow you to put me on the spot?
Yeah.
Since you've been the only real DM I've had, other than that short stint with Jeffsits, in a role-playing role as a player, because then next, Garrett, we're going to talk about the DM, so we can put him back on the spot. But as a player, where am I lacking in my role?
See, that's the good thing is you're not. So Boser has played long form campaign wise. He's played 2 campaigns. He's played 5th edition and what we're currently running in 5e. I'm going to tread this first line carefully because I don't want to throw you under the bus, Boser. When you created Balor, there was a lot of personal stuff that influenced the creation of this character. So you unintentionally role-played Balor to the utmost perfection because you were channeling. You hinder. That's not even the proper word. You didn't really role play because you were playing an angry version of yourself, but knowing Boser's internet persona versus what Balor was on screen were two totally different entities. As you're out of character talking as Boser versus when you're in as Balor, you could tell those are two different aspects of Tanner happening simultaneously at the moment. So Balor being stemmed from a raw place was perfect for you. You were able then to come into City of Mist with it, which is, even in a combat aspect, purely roleplay based because you're pulling your moves and your actions based off of your identity. Even Dell, you made a joke very early on about them being just a sexual individual. And while that is just your typical table joke that is always kind of running no matter what game is being played, that has transcended this entire campaign and allowed us to get backstory out of it. It gives us your whys for what happened out of your childhood. It gives you everything explaining up to this point. So no, I don't have anything to say here outside of you limit yourself when it comes to the things you can do because you need that rule set to help dictate what you can do. You don't like the rules light aspect.
It's too light and I don't know where I'm allowed to go.
But for this conversation, no, I don't have anything.
Well, okay, well, thank you. I didn't realize how much you actually pay attention to my innermost demons. So, wow, I feel very seen right now. But I feel like I lack what Garrett just spoke to, which was, like, I don't usually have a plan for where my character's going to go. I build the backstory. I know where they are now, where they came from, and then I let the game decide where they're going to go next and how they're going to grow. And I feel like I sometimes limit myself. Like I there's not a lot of growth in the end anyway, because I'm just stuck at where they started.
I definitely see the perspective. And I don't want to, correct me if I'm misinterpreting what you were saying here, Garrett, I think that conversation is for two different levels of gamers in this sense. For your first time players coming in to play the game, we're not having this conversation with them of you need to come to the table. If you're speaking out of character, you need to drop the character voice. You need to make sure you're stating I'm speaking out of character. You only are allowed to speak in character. You can only have those thoughts. It's a seasoned thing. And
it's a personal thing.
Exactly.
Like some people, right, Garrett?
Yeah, I would say so. And kind of the first rule of D&D is to have fun. Correct. That's it. Everybody needs to have fun. So if you're not comfortable with it, that's fine. If that's not your cup of tea, that's fine. What we're talking about is how to take it to the next level, right? If you want this critical role-ish thing, you got to put in the work for critical role, right?
Dimension 20 for those present.
Yeah, and if you don't want critical role, you don't need to do all this, right? If two different strokes for two different folks, which is great.
The importance of session zeros.
Exactly, which is what I was about to say. In your session zero, this should be applied, which in A Hero's Journey, over here, there is how many pages of session zero questions built in, ready to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. 6 pages of yes and no and free response questions.
I love that.
Yeah, because the point is that this is for new players. So they don't know what to ask in a session zero. They don't know what to talk about. So this is that prompt. Like, is murder hoboing allowed? Are we allowed to go into individual backstories and kind of have the spotlight shine on you for a little bit instead of the whole party? Is that okay? Yes, no, what? And then who's going to come up with the backstory? These are all questions that are in the book, which is
great
fantastic.
Questions.
It's very needed, I think, especially for new players and new DMs. All of that to say, session zero is very important to establish these points. Now, if you're a new player, kind of what you were saying about your character in City of Mist, if you're a new player, the old writer adage, you write what you know, act what you know. Like, if you have these personal experiences and you want to get into roleplay what you know first, get a feel for it, get that experience, and then move on to something a little more advanced, quote unquote. Not to say that your personal experience isn't advanced, but advanced being something that you might not have enough experience in. And that's where that empathy card comes in. It's like, how do you empathize with these experiences? Can you put yourself in their shoes and really kind of get to know them as a character? So that way, when you embody them in the game, you kind of know what's up, and you're able to make a solid attempt at portraying that in the game.
I think there is a fine line with allowing the narrative to help shape your character, but also not just letting go of the reins and letting the story take. Well, if that's what you want to do, again, that's perfectly fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're wanting to come into this, because this isn't a conversation for beginning players, this is a conversation for you've played a time or two. This conversation is asking the questions like, I want a deeper involvement. How do I get there? That's where this conversation comes into play. Yeah. This is where you start shaping and defining and laying out the groundwork for what you want this to become. But again, you still can let the story dictate where you want it to go, because that's just experience. That's life. But also at the same time, when you let go of the reins, like, yeah, fuck it, we're going to see what happens. That's when you kind of stepped out of this conversation. You're just like, yeah, I'm just playing the game. It's balancing that line of letting the experience impact you, but also laying the groundwork and putting in the work to get where you want to go.
So the one of the analogies in the optimizer storytelling that I use is driving at night with a GPS. So you're driving at night. You know that you need to go to Target because you need to get something from the store. It's not daylight. You don't know where you're going. You only have your headlights. So you don't know that that road is closed and you're going to have to go on an alternate route. Eventually, you're going to end up at Target, hopefully, but you still only have a headlights view of what's in front of you, which is kind of like roleplay, right? You only have that headlights.
Damn it!
It's just like you only have this much view in front of you. Eventually, hopefully, you'll get to Target, or you'll get to be the hero or whatever, but you might have to make a detour or 12 or 100, especially determining on what your party does, and maybe they fail that stealth check, and maybe you get taken captive. Okay, well. Adapt and react. Okay, you're taken captive. Now, is this going to be a place where your hero might be more heroic, or might they cower down and kind of take a follower's role instead of a leadership role, trying to get out of the situation? Either is acceptable as long as it progresses the character. Anytime your character development is stagnant in any situation, it's a wasted moment.
God damn it, that's a good analogy.
I know. Thanks. I'm like, I feel like I owe you an apology, T, for not doing enough work. because this is the experience I want to have as a player. I want this deep, really enriched in relationship kind of role play. And
which goes back
turns
to
out I'm the problem.
No, which just goes back to the conversation I had with you the other day of like the next campaign, I want it to be more. And this is what I meant, not realizing this is what I wanted because I didn't have the words. But that's what I mean is coming into it where obviously I enjoy the jokes. I enjoy our banter beforehand. But I am at the point, if we're going to keep doing these shows for the public to have, I want to have more of that in-depth, heartfelt, that heavier role play, to the sense that we're providing the stories that we want to give without actually saying it out loud. Like, I'm ready to give the unspoken.
Meanwhile, you throw pizza and rain it down on us while we're trying to have...
That's going to come around when you guys get there. There is full reasoning for that whole scene to happen.
Okay. That was a callback of what we recorded Saturday. I was so confused, but just rolling with it. Okay, so let's flip the conversation a little bit, if that's okay. Absolutely. We talked a lot about the players. What about the DM, the GM, the game master, the MC?
The MC.
So what about them?
Maybe they're feeling like stagnant in their play. How
my NPCs?
How can you equip them to be more effective with what they're trying to do?
So I think it depends on whether you're running homebrew campaign or you're running a pre-written module. Pre-written module, there's a lot of tips in there, generally speaking, especially if you're not using Wizards written modules. I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan. Not just because of the OGL stuff, but even before then, like pre-written modules were like not even a thing. So I choose to homebrew everything because why not, right? Like, be creative. You're here to be creative. Same. I've never run a pre-written campaign because
I don't
that's
understand
not why
how
I'm
it
here.
works.
I don't either.
That's a lot of reading that I don't have time. If I don't have time for Critical Role, I don't have time to freaking Salt March. All right, that's my hot take.
For sure.
You know, blast me in the comments. That's fine. But so Story Ellis is our homebrew world. So this world here, as a GM and a world builder, because as we approach this, I'm going to use the two kind of interchangeably because you create the world and then you put your characters into it. Your players now explore this world that you've created. So with Story Elus, there's this word verisimilitude, which means everything has to be connected and realistic within the confines of the world. So if you have magic, why is there magic? And does it make sense that magic is there? It doesn't have to be realistic by any means, but realistic by our standards as, you know, earth dwellers, but realistic for the world, right? Spice on Arrakis is there because the worms, it's their poop. Okay, great. Awesome. Works for me. The force surrounds all things and you can manipulate it because you have such high connection. Awesome. Space wizards, that's what's up. Makes sense, right? But because it's cool or because I want it that way is not a good enough reason. You have to create this immersive experience through verisimilitude, which is what we talk about in the other book, World Building Made Simple, which is right here.
More?
There is more. 90 prompts. No, I'm sorry, 60 prompts. 60 prompts into making a world that is your own. You can do one a day for 60 days, and by the end, you'll have some sort of world that you can further elaborate on after that. But all the prompts go into culture and geography and all of the things that make a world believable, such as.
So excited for this book, and I'm gonna buy one because I'm
Thank you.
running the next campaign. I'm DMing for the first time, like in a full campaign. And I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. Like, I've got great ideas. I kind of have this world painted, but I'm like, okay, now what?
So this fills in the blanks, right? So we've got physical geography, quote unquote, human geography, languages, government and politics, economy, religion, technology, health, society and culture, magic and fantasy, and variance. So these are all in the book. It's a journal. So it's a lot of line pages with some prompts. So how are people healed? Besides classes within the clergy and lay people, are there various degrees of believing for religion? How are property rights handled? What does diplomacy look like? Is there corruption in the government? And if so, why and how? So these are all things that you kind of can explore on your own and answer the prompt, right? Now, using this, so Story Ellis, which is the world that we run, it's got its whole backstory, got its various cultures, all inspired by things that I love. So if you're a DM inviting players in, if you're not interested in it, your players will not be interested in it. And I say that to say this. J.R.R. Tolkien is a great world builder. He wrote all these languages and he created all this rich history. You don't have to do that because that's what he was interested in. He loved history. He loved linguistics. He was an Oxford scholar.
And describing a hill for 40 pages.
He's got a brain the size of Texas. Like, dude is so smart. You don't have to come up with all of this stuff for your world to be valid. And I think as a fantasy person, right, into the fantasy genre, whether that's movies, books, games, whatever, I think there's this like unspoken rule or unspoken bias that like you have to, otherwise you're not as good as Tolkien, which is not true at all. So now Story Ellis,
deep of joy.
Exactly. So Story Ellis doesn't, well, we do a little bit of that, but it's mostly about what's happening in the world now. I love American history. I love world history. I love academics. And I love silly. So I took all of the things that I love and put them into one. So we've got some Roman history in there. We've got some Prohibition era 1920s steampunk Art Deco vibes, Prohibition vibes. All the characters in the world are based on storybook characters. So we've got some pigs from Three Little Pigs. We've got some wolves from The Big Bad Wolf. We've got some pixies from, all the Pixies Enchanted Forest kind of vibes. And they're all kind of ruled by the Jarl, who is that dude in the golden mask up there. And the Jarl is like God on earth, and what he says and what his church says goes.
This is amazing. Who did this art?
I did not do this. Is all AI art. Let me be perfectly clear. That's all AI art. It's not for sale. It is not for anything. It is just concept art We will commission artists for the publication later. So
Cool.
it's all AI. But so he banned this substance called moonshine mana, which is that blue bottle right there. Moonshine mana is a drink that you can drink, and then magic happens. Magic does not occur naturally in the world until some ingredients are distilled into a drinkable beverage by distillers and chemists. So I also love crime dramas. So not only do we have academics and we have, you know, fantasy storybook characters, but I love Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad's the best show. And my keyboard that I have right now, I can't put it out, but it's all Breaking Bad keycaps.
Oh,
There's
that's
a little
nice.
iceberg right there. So I love Breaking Bad. So this is kind of the meth, right? So moonshine mana has been banned. So now we have the prohibition, and now there's all these speakeasies within the cities, and like, how do you get into the speakeasy, and who's making the stuff, and who's in line with the Jarl, who is the king, who's kind of like the Pope church figure here, and who's in line with like the pixie crime families or the wolf crime families, and how do these crime families kind of interact with each other? So none of that is making my own language. None of that's making a rich history. But it is
making me feel bad as a world builder, though. I'm clearly not doing enough. I am leaving this conversation self-conscious.
Didn't you just say comparison is a thief of joy?
Exactly.
Doesn't matter. I'm a hypocrite. I said what I said.
So without going too much into like the vast history of it, what you would, as a player, what you would be in is like the now, obviously, because the past is in the past. Unless you want to role play like in the past, that's totally fine. But the point is that what do you do? In our system, you're an average Joe. You are not some higher echelon of agent. You are just a dude, and you have to navigate this world just like they do. And if you get wrapped in with some bad people, you have to be able to navigate that world. And there's, you know, role-playing mechanics and that are built into the world that have to do with how do you navigate story Elus. Story Elus is like the storybook characters. Elus because it sounds Roman. So we've got these Greco-Roman / American history / academic / crime drama vibes all rolled into one world because that's what I love. Tolkien has his languages and his elves. I've got academics, history, and prohibition. So if animals could talk, who would be the rootedest, right? So I said whenever we get here, I would talk about this. So one of the worlds, or one of the regions, is the Catniparus Empire. The Catniparus region. So, and everything's a pun.
I love that.
So, see, that the humor from the world comes from, like, it takes itself so seriously, but the names are, like, fluffy whiskers and things like that. So it's very dark and gritty, but the names are hilarious.
That's funny.
So the Catniparus Empire is all cats, but they think they're either kind of this hoity-toity, you know, holier than thou. They hold themselves to a very high standard, kind of like cats, or they're like beach bums, and they're surfers, and they just smoke catnip, and that's just what they do. And those are, like, the two main flavors of Catnipari people. So down there, the purple flowers, that's the wolfsbane. Wolfsbane grows in Wolfavia, which is home of the wolf people. You combine wolfsbane with pixie dust, you get moonshine mana with some other ingredients.
Okay.
However, the pixies and the wolves, they don't really like each other. They hate each other at this point, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So we have to like work together, but we're quick to kind of stab each other in the back to make sure that we get the upper hand and the moonshine economy there. There's some labs. There's Harris Bay. Harris Bay is the realm of like centaurs and minotaurs, who's the Craglance. It's supposed to be kind of Albuquerque.
How do I get a seat at this table? Just like hypothetically.
Just, you know.
We will be, when it's all said and done, we are going to run on 225 Games a story Elus. Oh, and there's the Nerd Cave when it was like first kind of in the heyday. Look at that. And there's me.
Hey!
That's me in my shirt and my hat. But we will be running it on 225 Games, so if you would like to have a seat at the table, you can. You can take a walk on the wild side. By all means, please do. The world. I'm super excited about the world. I think the world is a lot of fun. I might be a little biased, but it's been so much fun to like world build. It's been so much fun to create. So much so that I took the history that I wrote and wrote a 17-page history paper in the style of like an academic paper, all about the backstory, to put into a publication that will be published later before the system comes out. So part of 225 Games, we're kind of going a weird side roads here, but
we're hearing it. I'm here for it.
Moonshine Mana Press is one of our kind of subsidiaries of 225 Games, and that's where we'll self-publish kind of all of our books that take place in the world. So you have Forgotten Realms and like the Tales of Drist and all that. Well, Storyellus is going to have their kind of stuff too. So under Moonshine Mana Press, obviously Moonshine Mana Press, all of the Storyellus kind of books will be published there. The first one that we've got in the works is a series of in-universe writings, like that history paper, as well as some short stories in there that can give players kind of a feel of what the world could be. So if you read this, you might have an idea of like, oh, well, I kind of want to run this drug empire, Moonshine Mana empire here and fight off other crime families. Or I might want to work for one of the families and kind of to see what is it like for somebody who distills Moonshine Mana when they have their academic, chemistry proficiency or something along those lines.
But Lepex said he got a guy make some legit moonshine. How did that taste?
I hope it was delicious.
I'm interested. Sorry, go ahead, T.
So I'm curious, how do you keep track of your world building? Because if you don't have a particular app, I have a suggestion for you.
So for our world building, mostly it's through the writings and those Instagram posts. And we haven't done the AI art Instagram post in a while since we started Moonshine Mana Press. So all of the Storyellus stuff has kind of gone there. Oh, and there's the merch store. If you want to get yourself a Salutations hat, I'm kind of impartial to that. That's how I greet my class every day. By the way, I say salutations, friends, and they all have to say salutations back. So that's how salutations got started. And then I just started every video with salutations. Neither here nor there.
What up, bitches? And they have to say, what up, bitch?
And that's how he lost his job.
Yeah.
So, where was I going?
How do you track? How do you keep track of your?
How do I track?
Yeah.
Through the writing. So the 17-page world building book, or the world building paper that I wrote, kind of through there, and through those Instagram AI art kind of generated things. I know there's like World Anvil out there, and like Campfire has some stuff too.
Boser, do you want to pull up our Instagram real quick so he can get a visual of? Have you heard of something called Obsidian?
I don't think so.
It is what I use to track my world building, and it's just a note tracker, but it creates a web that correlates everything together. So it literally draws line connection points to everything. So when I write everything out and I'm on a tangent, I'm like, oh, this correlates with this. All of these things end up making focal points together.
That's cool.
So you can literally watch the world come together in real time. This is a very old photo. It is very convoluted at this point. But I highly recommend this to everybody who does any level of world building. Because my other issue is I'm one of these pieces of shit. But my issue is I have one here, one in my back pocket, one on my coffee table. And when I'm writing the same world in all three of these different books, I don't keep track of shit otherwise. And then thankfully I came across that app. And I now finally have everything in one location.
That works. Oh, and some of the players from the campaign that I ran with a roofing company is over here. We got Atlas and Dr. Sai in there. What's up, y'all?
Yo,
thanks for coming by.
But I'm with Lepex. That pic stresses me out. Like all those dots and lines, and I'm like, I don't know how they connect, and I don't want to click on all those and read those. It's stressful. But with what's like a relative time that if you had to put one, if I was starting a new world from scratch, and I want to make it right, how long is that going to take?
It depends on your definition of right, which is kind of a cop-out answer.
I know.
But,
I wouldn't try to find a way to phrase it.
Good old Aristotle says you got to define the terms of your argument, right? So let's define those terms. So right to me would mean make sense. Well, how much sense do you want? Do you want Middle Earth or do you want something else? Storyellus. So it's like, what's important to you, and can you create a world that is believable, that has those elements fleshed out? So if you want to do like a steampunk world, okay, well, steampunk worlds have what? They've got like steam technology. They've got these Victorian era vibes. How many different races do you want? Is it all humans? So you don't have to worry about races and race backstories there. They're all just all humans. So where did the technology come from? And that's basically it. Like, what other flavors? Is it a happy-go-lucky world? Is it utopian? Is it dystopian? Is it religious? Is it like a theocracy? Like, where's your government? What's your religion? Just kind of fill out the basic things. So if a player were to encounter that, you would have an answer that you don't have to go, I don't know. And then you might world build something on the fly that you're going to way regret later. And you can't like retcon it because retconning, here's my hot take. Retconning never feels good. Retconning never feels good.
That doesn't sound like me in the slightest.
No, it doesn't, because we just make the mistake and then it's canon and we cannot change it.
So I said something in Spanish once upon a time in the first campaign I ever ran. And so Spanish was just canon in that world of Tenaria. Same thing with the Kuatua with the doorknob friend.
Yeah.
Spanish was just canon. Just anybody could speak Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. But I did say, I think Buenos Dias, and all of a sudden Spanish was canon. So it happens.
It's just earlier one of the prompts from your book mentioned property taxes, and I was like, oh my God, if I have to think that detailed about everything, it's going to take me years.
But
you don't have to. Well, it's property rights. So it's like, okay, if somebody died or whatever, are there fights for land, right? So if you are like a lord of the land and there's another lord over there and you want his land, are they going to fight? Do you have to go get the Pope's approval like it's medieval Europe? Can you just go toe to toe like it's the Vikings and the Holgong and you just fight for each other's land and you get his wife too? Like what is in your world? And there's no right answer, right? That's what makes it your world.
Yeah.
The only right answer is that it makes sense. Is there's verisimilitude? If there's verisimilitude, you won. You did it. If it makes sense, you did it. That's all that matters. And if that's not part of your world, then you don't have to worry about that, right? So these are all very broad terms. But if property rights aren't really a concern, because maybe the government owns all the land and there is no private ownership. Well, if that's the case, you don't have to worry about it. The government owns everything. Next prompt. Boom. Okay. And they don't have to be, essays. It can just be little bullet points to just kind of at least have some sort of idea of what it could be.
I will say, though, Boser, in this circumstance, going into this for the first time, I think I would recommend you attempting to do something like that, because, and circling back to our character side of the conversation, it's going to make you think about things that, like, it may not come up, but it's going to give you a backing on an idea that, because let's be honest, you have to prep for the unexpected. You have to plan for the unexpected. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that one. And you always back and I say you, I'm speaking of myself, the DM, the table head, whatever it is, you will back yourself in the corner if a question is asked and you have not thought that thing through yet. That's when retconning comes into play. That's when you back yourself in the corner. But if you have something to that extent teaching you, like, hey, think about this. So when that question comes up, you may not have a definitive answer, but you will at least have a backing to your world that makes it make sense.
Exactly.
And I currently, can we pick that one up yet? Because I was on the website and I wasn't seeing that one.
Which one? World building made simple?
The world building, yeah.
Yeah. You just click the button at the very top, world building made simple, and then it should take you right to Amazon.
Oh, there it is. I was looking at buy now and I thought they.
And there it is.
Perfect.
It's only $10.
It is both are only $9.95.
What?
Which I'm a little upset that City of Mist is on its way out. Don't panic, guys. I'd say that, but I think we probably have another 20 some episodes before that story comes to a conclusion.
I need a little time to now world build. So
yeah, but like not comparisons to Thief of Joy and all that.
Right.
I am now not disappointed. I now want to go through and do more. Because I want my world to be so much richer. Yeah. I want to, because not once did I think property rights, but in the back of my mind, I went through a whole catalog of questions that will directly impact our characters, like to a story for a plot line that they are currently going down. That is something that won't come up necessarily, but it did give me the thought process for the chain of command for the government. I have a couple entities established in the world, but I haven't delved much past that. But just that one question or not even the question, just the two words of property rights, it went me down a whole chain of, that's 4 different things I need to build upon. So when this one string does get pulled, this all makes sense.
Yeah,
because I unfortunately am a less is more, and now I think I'm going to be a more is more.
Less and
years
more
fucking
has
later.
its place, though. And here's the other thing, right? Not to get on another soapbox rant, but when you world build, you have to very carefully give this information out to your players. You cannot bombard them with 800 pieces of information about your world. I would disassociate so fast because it is not engaging, and I do not care about how property rights are. If you told me that in session 0 or 1, I would leave your table. So, not you specifically, just general.
The DM.
The DM, the GM, the director, the whoever. We're going to call ours the director. So going back to the acting thing, the players are the actors and the GM is the director. And between those two, there's that relationship that's built.
Right.
Just to hit on the RP kind of acting side a little bit more. Plus, it's kind of that 1930s, crime drama, mobster movie kind of vibe there. Because that's kind of what it's a Breaking Bad, Godfather-y
Watch
world.
Tulsa King if you haven't yet.
I watched the first episode and I haven't gone back to it, but I loved it. I watched it with my parents, and then I had to bail.
I'm so invested in this goddamn story. But anyways, back to what you were
very
speaking
good.
on.
So it's great to have like all of this information, but if property rights never come up in your campaign or in your stories or whatever you're doing, that's okay. At least some sort of basis is there, which is great. But if you tell everybody in session 0, and if you wanted to buy a house, you would have to go talk to the king, and the king would put you on a payment plan and give you this 30-year fixed mortgage for your farmland. And I don't care. Please leave me alone. I'm going to go play Skyrim now.
Yeah.
I give up. So, give and take, of course. But, if the plot goes there and like now you have to go help this dude, fend off his farmland from these invaders who claim that they have this right to it because of some sort of deed provision or something in the law. Okay, now it's a little bit more interesting, and you can play it from a combat perspective and fight them off. You can play it from a legal perspective and like go to the courts and like argue as a lawyer. There's a lot of different ways you could roleplay that or combat it out. So it's good to have, but definitely not necessary.
Really, you're just making me really excited to build a world, and I do want to do it as detailed as possible, T. Just to get the experience.
I need you to look me in the eyes for the moment. You are going to put in all of this work, and Jeff Sitz and I will fuck up your plans. I just need that blatantly clear right now. There is not enough writing prompts in the world for the injustice they and I are going to do against you.
GPS in the headlights. Just take all the detours you want, but just get there in the end. That's all I ask.
And the kind of world building, like I don't really plan to create like a hard story. Like I have kind of a trajectory the world's going to, and I want the details fleshed out so that you can play in it, and then you can make the decisions, and then those decisions will have consequences. I probably won't come with like a strong...
It's a fine line. You have to dance between knowing where the story is going to go, but you don't want to railroad it. Then it takes out the fun. Then there is no decision making. If you railroad, you're just telling somebody a story at that point. You want to have this is where it could go. It's just going to do a whole lot of this along the way. What path do you take? That's the journey. That's the question that's being ventured out.
So there's this economic principle of the invisible hand. By the way, the invisible hand is the one that kind of like controls the economy. So that is an economic principle. So too in your world is the invisible hand. So just because your players go off the rails does not mean they've gone off the rails, right? Maybe in the prison, now they meet that NPC that you put in the tavern, and now they're in the prison because they decided to rob. Oh, and then here he is. He's over here. He got arrested for punching some Wolfavian in the face in a speakeasee, and
it was
the
talking
angels.
Shit. It's not my fault.
I hate it when that happens. He was talking mess, and I had to beat his ass up. I had to put him in his place. Pimp slap him. So you can always follow the guidelines, and then the rest is kind of set dressing, for lack of a better word, and just wherever they go is where they go, and then the story will follow. Now, if they kill that NPC, maybe there's another NPC who is a cutting image, a clone, just boom. Okay. There was a time, and I played it for humor. I have a hard time running like dark fantasy serious because we're all sitting around a table in fake voices. which is fun. But for me, I like to play the whimsy side. So there was this bird character in the first campaign I ever ran, and his name was Giorgino. And Giorgino got firebolted into oblivion. And then out of the tree fell Giorgino the second. It was his son. It was crazy that he was right there this whole time watching this happen, and he had the same idea that Giorgino the first had. I think that's the same campaign or the same session that Spanish was introduced, actually. But whimsy is fun. That's all I gotta say. Whimsy is super fun.
Well, I'm excited to order these books now, and I think we need one of those player guides for each of us. T, what do you think?
Yeah, probably.
I think so. For the next campaign, so that we can maybe for once.
Listen, I haven't been a legit player in a very long time. It's gonna be a weird trek to go down to answer those questions. I will 100% be picking one up.
Yeah.
Well,
I will pick up both because I support everybody, but
I appreciate you.
You're not on Kickstarter, which is good because I'm not allowed on there anymore.
Got banned.
We will be by December. December is Victorious. We will come out full-fledged December. So here's our plan.
It's because I love and support you, and it's on you. It's not on me.
I appreciate
you. Did this.
So we've got our journals here, but now we're kind of focusing our efforts into Storyellus and making that come to life. So throughout the next couple months, those books will come out through Moonshine Mana Press, and then come December, we are going to launch the TTRPG system on Kickstarter with all of our awesome, milestones that everybody does. It's going to be great after some playtesting and everything, of course. And then it'll be available on Kickstarter. And then you too can, with our new Storyellus method, come in and give us your money. And we would appreciate it.
I didn't get kicked off Kickstarter. I support too many people on Kickstarter, and I financially should not be. And I made a promise to my spouse that I will not be doing that anymore.
It's okay, he'll break it.
Forget by the time
I already did with our guest a couple weeks ago.
Well,
we're making comic books. I had to support them.
I know. I hope it gets backed all the way so we get those, because I'm excited with those right now. Now, I know before we started this whole Geek Out session at the start of the stream, we said, at the very end of the stream, we'll play the world's fastest one-shot. But I feel like that would go directly against everything that we just spoke about for the last hour and a half.
Well,
because I wanted to use the advice that I learned from you and put it towards this, but I was just going to make everything up off the cuff. It was just going to be bullshit. And I'm like, no, I can't do that now.
Just to reiterate, though, those who may be lurking, we are not saying this is the only way you can play TTRPGs.
Absolutely
There is going to come a time, and it may not even come to a time. It all depends on your gaming preferences.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Two of my favorite games of all time are purely decision-based games, and that is Fable, and that is Knights of the Old Republic. It's what got me into TTRPGs to begin with, because I wanted to replicate the feeling those two games gave me. I like the serious aspect of it. Of course, I like the whimsical sprinkles and droplets along the way, but I like getting into the role. Like, I like crying over the characters because I am that invested. You don't have to play the game that way. You can make the game as slap happy as you want it to be, and that's perfectly okay. There's no wrong way to play the game. The only way you're playing the game incorrectly is if you are not having fun.
That's what I was about to say. Exactly right. Absolutely. If you're not having fun, you're not doing it right.
Thank you for clarifying. I guess what I meant was I wanted the game to bolster what we had just previously talked about with them, and this game would not do that. It would go against everything that we had just talked about. So now I don't feel like doing it.
Do you have those questions from Instagram?
I do.
Pull up.
If
you're ready for that.
That's what I was going to bring in next for sure. Because really, it's all kind of sanctioned into the same question posed different ways.
Gotcha.
We put out on our Instagram on the story and then on the post, share your biggest issues with your TTRPG campaign or insecurities as either a player or a DM. And all the answers, except for the goofy ones, all the answers are basically, I'm terrified that my players aren't having a good time. I'm so afraid that what I've planned is stupid, that they're going to realize that I suck. And it's just the insecurity of knowing you're doing a good job. How do we fight that?
Through energy. That's my go-to 100% of the time. I have a hot confession to make, and that is I don't know every rule of 5e. I know very few rules of 5e, actually. But here's the thing. I feign expertise pretty well, I think.
Same.
So if you have a certain energy and you're having fun and like you're portraying the world correctly, which is, with energy, and you seem excited to be there and you don't seem like skittish, people are going to come off of your energy. If you're like skittish and scared, they're going to be like, what did I get myself into? But if you come across as confident, right? Like you can own the table and like you are capable of leading them through a story and you think that you can, the rules are second. First rule is have fun. Who cares the movement speed or what the text of the rules does, especially if they're new, because you want them to have fun. You want them to get hooked, right? You can introduce all the rules later. And the rules, okay, think of it like this, I guess. Rules are like medium and hard mode, where easy mode is having fun. If they are new, put them on easy mode. Why would you ever not put them on easy mode if they are new to TTRPG? Yeah. That's like watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the extended editions, and that's the first time you've ever seen them. That's not how you watch Lord of the Rings, is the first time through, is the extended editions, not even a little bit. So, and that's what you're doing when you're like rules interpreting in front of new players. That's not what that's there to do, right? So put them on easy mode. Let them do kind of whatever they want. Engross them in the story. Be excited. They're going to be excited because they wanted to try this. And that's what I've experienced. So what I used to do during the summer times is I'd go from pub to pub or from, brewery to brewery, and I would host D&D. And it was all Stranger Things themed because Stranger Things had just come out, season 4.
Yeah, everyone's excited.
Vecna, yeah, everyone's super pumped. So I made a Stranger Things inspired campaign, and they went into the Upside Down and whatever. And I did not give a lick about the rules. Everybody was OP. Everybody won at the end of the day because that's what they wanted, right? They wanted to experience D&D. So I let them. Was it rules accurate? No. Did they have a good time? Yeah. Did I lead them through that adventure with confidence? Absolutely. So confidence is key. First and foremost, if you're the GM, DM, director, confidence, own it. Whatever happens, happens. Let them have fun. Don't ever say no. Yes and. Yes and, yes and, yes and, yes and, yes and. Never no but.
Or no but.
Yes and.
Never no but.
I'm a strong proponent of no but.
No, I'm with Garrett always. Yes and.
Never no but, especially with a new player. Nobody wants to be told no when they're brand new at something. So if you want them to be engrossed in it, easy mode is always yes and. You can no but on medium and hard mode, but if it's their first time, unless it's like a safety issue and somebody is uncomfortable for some reason, it's always yes and. No but should never be on easy mode. That's my hot take. So confidence.
I disagree personally, but no, I do see what you're saying wholeheartedly. And I agree. I don't know but in those beginner sessions because you want to give them the experience that they think they're getting coming into it. I've got a small group that I didn't think was going to turn into a group, but they're like, hey, I want to play D&D. So I was like, sure, let's do that. So they murder hobo, they PvP'd. I was like, you're not doing anything correctly, but that's fine. You guys are having fun.
Then they did it correctly.
Exactly. Yeah. And at the end, they're like, hey, would you be willing to like play more? I was like, yeah, absolutely. Just a heads up, though. There's going to be some tweaks going into like an actual campaign from here. You're still going to be able to do the heroes. I'm a rule of cool until the day I die. I will throw rules out the window to make you the hero of the story if that's what you want. But things like murder hobo PvP, I don't allow because that can hinder somebody else's enjoyment if they are not confident or like comfortable like speaking out. But yeah, no, easy mode, first time players, yes and no but I am a strong proponent of no but just in a TTRPG community because not everything can be yes and, but it can be no but to give you a fun little pivot to play off of, like failures. I'm a strong proponent of failing.
Oh yeah,
yes, you fail and here's what happened.
To kind of go off what you said too, going off with that confidence is knowing how to read the room. So if there is a player. And this might just come from my teaching background, but like the ability to read the room and make sure everybody's engaged is something that I have to do every day, all day long, constantly, right?
Right.
So calling, quote unquote, calling on someone who is like disengaged will bring them back into the game, right?
Yep.
So being able to read that room and being like, oh, what do you do? And deliberately asking them verbatim, what do you do? If they're kind of disengaged or like not agreeing, like, do you want to stop this? Okay, well, how would you like to stop this? Because their body language and their facial expressions will absolutely 100% tell you whether or not they're like vibing or straight not vibing at all whatsoever. So confidence, read the room, let them do what they want. Easy mode for new players.
So then that's my next question, because like I said, I'm going to be DMing the next campaign, and the players at my table are going to be T, who's been playing this for 20 years, Jeff Sitz, who's been playing
only 10
for a long time, and
Jeff
and
Sitz has
Lucas,
been playing for 20 years.
And Lucas is great at looking tactically at the rules, min-maxing. You are forever the DM, so you're going to ask you're going to find the loopholes. And like Jeff Sitz, it just really desires like strong role play. And I do too. I've just never done it from that seat. So yes, I can be confident, but these guys need a real steak and potatoes kind of campaign. How can I work towards supplying that as a new DM?
In his book, where you can go get it at 225.com.
That's true, 225games.com. And that's what Session Zero is for.
Yeah.
Do they want whimsy and fun and whimsical? Do they want dark fantasy, gritty? And now here's another hot take. No D&D is better than bad D&D, because no D&D is fine. You can go find another table. Bad D&D makes people feel bad, kind of feels gross. You work so hard on this world, but it wasn't what they're looking for, or whatever. Exact. I couldn't have said it better. Tarnishes the experience. So don't play D&D if you can't agree on like the Session Zero stuff, which is, the flavor of the world, right? Do you want that whimsical, Lord of the Ringsy kind of Shire feel, or do you want like the grittiness of the orcs and like the actual whatever, right? Like, is it going to be gritty and bloody and dark fantasy and blah, or horror or whatever flavor you want? But y'all have to be on the same page. And if you feel like you're incapable of delivering that experience, maybe don't DM for that particular group. Like if my group wanted a gritty, realistic, serious campaign, I'm not the DM for you. Sorry. I could try my best, but I'm going to crack jokes because it's D&D. It's D&D. If I wanted to play gritty, whatever, I'd go play Skyrim or whatever. But I want to have fun and I want those jokes. But that's just my own flavor. That's my own personal perspective. Not that if you want dark fantasy, like that's not wrong, just not for me. Yeah. Right. And that's why my characters are named things like Fluffy Whiskers or things like that. So, or Catniperous Empire, so.
I guess I'm just afraid because I hear from all these DMs who are all insecure for no matter how they've been doing it. One of those people that were insecure has been playing the same D&D campaign for 25 years. He's been the DM at that table for a long time, and he's still insecure whether he's doing a good job.
It's kind of like, you're an actor, right? I'm a musician. So when you go on stage,
what fucking don't you do, Garrett?
I don't draw. I'm not an artist. I don't do that. But
good to know you're not perfect. Thank you.
I am not perfect in any way. I promise you.
Good night, Miss Song. Thanks for hanging out, buddy.
See you, man. So as you go out on stage to get that performance, you still got those butterflies, but then like it becomes second nature. Like you've done this before. Same thing like with a new group of kids, first day. Like I've got to set these boundaries and things from the get-go. I'm a little bit nervous going in. I can't sleep the night before, but as soon as I go in, like I know what to do. Same thing with you. Same thing with me on a stage. I know what to do. Same thing with that DM. He knows what to do. So even though there's those butterflies and those little like, own it and be confident in it. And you're going to rock it. Say yourself in the mirror. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Say yourself in the mirror. Hey, my name is whoever you are, and I am a game master, dungeon master, role player, whatever. And then own that identity, because when you own that identity, you're going to start to adopt it, even subconsciously or consciously. You just say it out loud. You will 100% become that thing.
And here I thought this was going to be a fluffy session.
I like talking about this stuff.
I do too. I really do. This has been really kind of therapeutic in a way, and got me reinvigoratedly excited for like our next session on when we record T City of Mist, and when I want to start working on. Well, I realize I need to backtrack because in my mind I'm like, oh great, I've already got this great plan, but I have skipped an important step, which is talking to the players on what kind of game they want to have.
And that's session 0. And you can
zeros.
have those session 0 questions in A Hero's Journey, a journal for 5e TTRPGs, which even if you're not like running 5e, those questions are still very valid no matter what system you're on, because they're not necessarily about the system itself, but like what's the meta expectation of the table.
Yeah. Okay. You guys, if you've learned anything, comment below or comment on the side if you're watching Twitch. I learned a lot, and I'm prepared to learn a lot more when I get my hands on those books.
Well, I
Are they
appreciate
Amazon
that
Prime?
support.
Can I
They
get it
are.
by
They are
tomorrow?
Prime.
Perfect.
I think you can do 2 days. They have to print them because it's print on demand, but
okay.
should be pretty easy to do.
That's amazing. T, what's the biggest thing you learned tonight?
That I don't do enough, and I don't mean that in like a self-deprecating instance. I mean that like I can do more, and I just didn't think about it.
And that's the kind of game that you want to have.
Yeah.
And we've just been banging our heads against the wall, like, how do we do better? Oh, we just have to talk about it and think it through and actually think about it before we sit down to record. Because honestly, I don't think much before. And I should.
I know.
And I
we
want
literally wake up and record. That's the problem.
Yeah.
We have no brain function the moment we hit record.
Like,
Not to
slap happy.
undo everything that I just said, but sometimes the best sessions and memories come from spontaneity and the improv. So you plan, but also embrace the spontaneity of like whimsy. Just you got to do it. That creates lifelong memories for sure.
And all of our episodes are like that. And we've had great, like, treasured moments that I will never forget. And we didn't like think them through a lot beforehand. We just kind of followed the moment. And all of a sudden I'm crying.
That's how you know it's a good session. If there's tears of laughter, tears of sorrow, tears of joy. There's tears. You nailed it.
I want people to get wet in my sessions.
All right.
I hate it when people get wet in my sessions.
On that note, thank you, Garrett, and all what you're doing at 225. What's the name come from, by the way?
So 225 was my college apartment. So we were apartment literally 225. We called it 225. So we were like, hey, are you coming over to 225 later? Are you gonna come out guys' night at 225? You win. And so like the apartment itself, kind of like bag end, became 225. And you know, to keep those kind of college memories alive of guys' night and like playing Rocket League with the beta of Rocket League, and then like after a match we'd go smoke cigars on the porch, and then we come back in and then drink and then play Rocket League, go back and smoke, and like doing all of that and just being nerds and just going to pawn shops with the gang, and like we were all best friends living in the same apartment. It was so much fun. So to kind of keep, you know, to honor that memory and to like to keep those memories alive, 225 Games is 225.
Man, I fucked my college experience up.
You weren't playing Rocket League?
I was doing a lot
cigars?
of terrible things in college. Shoes, what's going on, brother?
Yo! Oh, I didn't read your comment. I just both said shoes. Jinx, now you owe me a Coke. Well, if you're just tuning in, you're catching the very end of this Geek Out Sesh with Garrett from 225 Games. It's just giving you all the great resources to take your TTRPG to the next level, whether you're a player or a DM, GM, MC, whatever, director. So use the command 225 and you can get those. And then you can always watch it back tomorrow on YouTube and podcast. And this is one I might have to go back and listen to again because I want to make sure I caught every
This is
nugget.
an important one.
It is.
I appreciate that. I'm glad that it means a lot to you guys because it means a lot to me talking about this stuff. And by the way, on the website 225games.com, there is a Discord link. So if you click the Discord link, you're everybody listening. You're more than welcome to join the Discord. We'd love to have you over there. Lots of conversations, lots of people lifting each other up. We have this saying, "Steel sharpens steel," so everybody benefits from everybody lifting each other up. That's what we do over there. So if that interests you, by all means, please come over to our Discord and give us your love, and we will love you in return. And Instagram and all that. It's at the very top of the website.
Done. I'm there now.
Wow, that was fast. And if you're listening back later, the links, the links are below. You can find all that below the video or podcast. We, again, do this every Monday, so tune in next week where Let's Get Rollin' is back on the stream, but in a new setting. They've never been here for a Geek Out Sesh. How many people do we get? Do you know, T?
I'm assuming it'll be Brit Simba, but I don't know the answer to that question.
They are a great D&D podcast and Twitch, so we're going to get more inside the minds and the great things that they're doing by using the game to lift up the community. And then Wednesday, what you streaming Wednesday, T?
Whatever the dopamine tells me to.
That's right.
There you go.
And then Thursday is another episode of our ongoing campaign of City of Mist. And you can watch as we take all these great things we've just learned from 225 and actually implement them. And watch, our gameplay is going to go off the skyrocketing map.
Yee. Also, I lied, Boser. We're going to Let's Get Rollin'.
Oh, to raid?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, y'all stick around because we're going to take all this great energy that we've created, that you've created, Garrett, in the chat.
Oh, thanks.
100% you.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, chat, and listening to some of the stuff I have to say. That means a lot. You could be anywhere in the world right now, but you're here hanging out with us on 4 Geeks by Geeks, and that makes my heart throb. I appreciate you. You're the best. Throb.
Hey, guys, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Well, until next time, I'm Boser.
I'm T.
I'm Garrett.
And you just keep geeking out.
On out. One of those.
Did it!
I tried.
did
I did
it!
the best I could.
Proud of you.